My dear friend, we are well aware that we are telling you in my videos the persecution of the Zoroastrians or the Parsi by the Islamic Gunism. As the Muhammad was the head of this Islamic Gunism, because he was the rapist, killer, and the robber. And it is our international Kafir army will eliminate all the Islamic goons throughout the world without fail. If the murderer of the Salim Wasik will not be neutralized by the UP police, which is large in number, the Antarashtriya International Kafir Sena will eliminate these elements. Throughout the world, in India, all over the world, we will demolish all the mosques and the Islamic madrasas which are giving the training of the Islamic terrorism, because Islam is the synonymous of the terrorism. So, my dear friend, the migration of the Jews, Parsis, between 10th to 20th century migration to India, because they were the most persecuted community by the Islamic Gunism since inception of the Islam. The Zoroastrians were so persecuted as usually by Muslims, and Islam did against every evil barbaric behavior against Kafir. So Zoroastrians migrated to India reflects that how Islamic doctrine in harsh against Kafir or non-Muslim, and how Vedic religion and culture are the pro-human. So Zoroastrians started migration to India, Vedic land and full of humanity. The land of kindness in the beginning, Zoroastrians were fled to northern India. To northern India, then to island of the Hormuz and Iranian island in the Persian Gulf, 8 kilometers offshore from Iran. That the Hormuz, the island, the now Iran trying to stop or to obstruct the way alongside the Hormuz of the ship in this war. That is Hormuz. And then finally, India, generally or mostly, their exodus was due to only Muslims. Tyranny against Zoroastrians. Recently, some scholars, as Qissa-e Samaras, written in 1599 by a Parsi priest, and the Qissa-e Zoroastrian, a Hindustan, written more than 20 years later. This is complicated, and there was already Zoroastrian tribe here in India in the Sasanian period. This theory is the only fabricated. It suppose there were Parsi were living, then what relation with persecutions by Muslims? If suppose they were living in India, but they were protected by Sanatani Vedic Arya people of the peaceful culture of the India. So they were living peaceful in India, but migration was the ultimate reason for migration of the Zoroastrians, as earlier in the book mentioned. In case of Jews in the Middle Era, because Iran was no safer to Zoroastrians, first group of the Parsi settled in Sanjan, Gujarat. The name, the origin of their city name in Middle East, Sanjar, near Meru, in presently as Turkmenistan. Many scholars are against this fact that when Parsi came to India, but dates are the history of the past. But persecution cannot be forgotten at any cost, because their migration was only due to the persecution by Muslims, clear cut, the intolerant Muslims due to the Islam and Quranic ideology only. The Safavid, the most difficult time to Zoroastrians or the Parsi during Safavid period, and faced repeated persecution and the forced conversion. Safavi kings forced to convert them in Shia Islam. Due to Iran is a Shia majority Islam, Abbas first of the Safavids settled many Zoroastrians in a suburb of his new capital, the suburb of Isfahan, Iran. The abode of the Parsi known as Gabar Mahal or the Gabristan or Gabrabad, derived from the word Gabar, actually Gar, an insulted nomenclature given by the Muslims, as they think as they are superior than to Kafir. Actually, such type people still are living in the dogma. Irony and fool's paradise, fearing with Muslims, and due poverty and weak against Muslim, Parsi had to hide the fire temples within their dense populated habitats or mohalla, and conversion in a newly invented dialects known as Dari. Later, Safavid kings were not as tolerant as Shah Abbas. Muhammad Bagir Majlisi persuaded to Sultan Hussein, who was his reign was between 688 to 728, to decree the forcible conversion of Zoroastrians, those who were refused to kill. The accounts in the Mino Kherad written during Safavid's period demonstrated that the Zoroastrians were subject to harassment by the Shiite majority. Their places of the worship fire temples were under a constant threat of being destroyed by 717 when Lebruyan, Dutch tourist and the artist, and he round the travel across the earth twice or large scale traveling visited Isfahan, now in Iran, the Persia, because originally they were the habitant of the Persia. Now as Iran no longer practiced their faith and were the main defied community of the world after Jews. The most afraid lot of the Zoroastrians were brought to Asfan and had been forced to become Muslim. In 1821, Kerr Porter, that is the 1777 and 1842, a Scottish visited the Asfan and noted that there was chiefly artists, authors, and the diplomats. Any Zoroastrians were left in Isfahan, and a travel Gabrabad was in a ruined condition. In the Tsar dynasty between 1796 to 1925, a Zoroastrian astrologer named Mullah Gustavs predicted the fall of Zand dynasty to the Khazar army in Kamran dynasty. Because of Gustav's forecast, the Parsi of the Kamran were spread by the conquering army of Agna, Muhammad Khan Zar. Despite the aforementioned favorable incidents, the Parsis during the Zar dynasty remain in mental agony, and their population were rapidly to decline. Many foreign visitors to Iran of this time commented the pitiful situation. Traveler A. V. W. Jackson, Abraham Valentine Williams Jackson, LSD, PhD, LLD, was born 9 February 862 and died on 8 August 1937. Was an American specialist on Indo-European languages. He was the great scholar with the ability of an author who noted that Zoroastrians were living in continuous persecution and fear of the death, and molested their women. Parsis were denied to any job as respectable job by Muslim extremists. Though all Muslims are not extremists, but after reading the Quran and the violence provoking verses, it is very difficult to our Muslim brethren to bypass these verses of the Quran, which are creating fear in non-Muslims or the kafir. One witnessed by A.V.M. Jackson in Yazd. According to Edward Brownie, the walls of the Zoroastrian's house had to be lower than that of the Muslims, and they could not repair their fire temples and the synagogues of the Jews in any Muslim country or the Islamic country. Various methods were used by Muslims against Kafirs for the converted Islam, and in the last by forced conversion, and who denied convert into Islam, ultimately death or fleeing from their kingdom. Various methods were used to polytheist worship of many lords, not God, as the people of Islamic faith are describing in the journal. God is only one to any cult or religion who says that God are many in Vedic and the religion is totally false, or they do not know about this fact and are innocent. But in every cult, God is one. Parsis were forbidden from taking up the lucrative occupants. Parsis were as outcast, social rejection, as impure and untouchable. But if any member of Parsi family converted to Islam, he or the she was entitled to all inheritance. Even his or her family still was Zoroastrian, and all property was given to new converted as Muslim. What a stupidity by Muslims at the time that food of the Zoroastrian was impure. And many times if they of touch food of the Muslims, including fruit and vegetable, that food was not pure to taken by any Muslim. It seems at the time that Islam was holy as Ganga in India, and after conversion of Parsi family, they were turned immediately pure, which is amazing fact. Zoroastrians were threatened with forced conversion, even were beaten by Muslims and had to compel fled away and religious temples. Sanctuaries were regularly desecrated. Daily life harassment was very common and attack on roadside by the Muslims. Murder or killing of the Zoroastrian would not punishable, as in the Islamic countries. Nowadays, Zoroastrians could not wear good dresses or new white clothes. Use of fragrance oil or the jasmine oil, they were not allowed to. Wear and overcoat in winter also, but were compelled wear long cold kaba and the cotton grieve on their feet in winter. Give on their feet in winter. By that time, rogue Muslims wearing the eyeglass, hat, long trouser, cloth, boots, socks, winding their turbans tightly, carrying watches or ring were all forbidden to Parsees or the Zoroastrians. Zoroastrians. During the rainy season, they were not allowed or appear in public because their bodies and the clothes could pollute the Muslims. Zoroastrian men in Yazd would carry a large shawl that they would places under their feet when as a visitor go to a Muslim's home so as to prevent the carpet from being polluted. Forbidden from riding horses and only allowed to ride mul khachar in Hindi or donkeys upon facing a Muslim, they had to dismount not until 1923. This ban was lifted and allowed horse riding and wearing good clothes and taking an umbrella in rainy and summer season lifted by Raja Saha. Raja Saha Pahlavi, 15 March 1808 to 26 January 1944, was the king of the Persian Empire, was kind-hearted and having a humanity value each of any body, respected caste and creed, and was the Shah of Iran from 15 December 1925 until he forced abducted by the Anglo-Soviet invasion on Iran on 16 September 1941. He was concerned. He was coronated as king on 25th April 1926. He was the predecessor of the Ahmad Shah Zar and his successor was Muhammad Raja Shah Pahlavi. Ahmad Raja Shah was the last king of the Zar dynasty. Raja Shah introduced many social, economic and the political reforms during his reign, ultimately laying the foundation of the modern Iranian state. His ruling pattern remains controversial till date. Raja Shah was in the village of Elastan, Sabah, Dukkoho country, Mazandaran province in 1878 to Major Abbas Ali Khan and now Safrin, his mother. His mother was from Georgia, part of Russian Empire then, and the immigrant to Iran in the aftermath of the Russian Revolution. Persian had become a battleground for 1 year. In 1917, Britain used Iran as a springboard for an attack in Russian unsuccessful attempt to reverse the revolution. According to scholar Erwin Abrahamian would be free of the clerical influence, nomadic uprising and ethnic differences on the one hand and on the other hand of the content. European style education system westernized the woman active outside the home and modern economic structure with the state factories, communications, network, teaching institute, investment banking and departmental stores. During his reign many projects were completed as large road construction and the Trans-Iranian Railway and the modern education was introduced and the University of the Tehran, the first Iranian University of Iran, the industries of the plant 17-fold under the Raja Shah in the Western world. Persia was historically the common name for Iran, but 1935 Raja asked to foreign delegates and League of Nations to use the Iran, land of the Aryans. His class clergy was very common because Orthodox Muslim did not want to freedom and uplifting of the non-Muslims, especially Zoroastrian. In March 1928, he violated the society of Qawm Fatma al-Masumeh to beat a cleric who had angrily admonished Raja Sabai for temporarily exposing her face in a day earlier, while all on pilgrimage to Qawm in the Fatma al-Masma. In December 1928, he instituted a law requiring everyone except Shia juries consult who had passed a special qualifying examination to wear Western clothes. On the top of all misery, it seemed that this was the part of Delhi to pay a heavy religious tax known as Jizya tax, and it was so high to Zoroastrians. Many Parsees were compelled to embrace Islam. There was no option for poor Zoroastrians when Jizya imposed on Zoroastrian. So we will continue in another video this persecution of the Zoroastrians. And as you know, Islam is a perfect Gunism. This cult is followed by the barbaric Zangli people, which are known as the true Muslims. And this is our duty to eliminate all these Islamic goons and the Goonism throughout the world. And we have firm determined we had to pledge that the Kafir International Army will eliminate this Islamic Gundagarji throughout the world only in 3 years by the logics or by the power, because we are too much in number than to these true Muslims, and the Muslims are living the Islam, and there is only 16% of the population is following the Islam, not the 23 population as highlighted by the Islamic goons that are the mullahs and the Islamic idiot stupid scholars. Thank you very much.